Live?
Yeah, I think so. It's still saying setting up. It's just slow today, I think, more than anything
It
else.
says live on here. It says meeting is
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I think it's still the wheel of death is still going around and round in mine. There we go. Brilliant. So, good evening, everybody. Back again on Tuesday for the Creative Connections, bringing the community together. And once again, we talk about mental health awareness. And we have, as usual, Carl with us, and we've got Francisco. So, over to you, Carl.
Thanks very much. Thank you very much, everybody. It's lovely to see everybody again this evening. It's really nice to be here with Francisco and having another. I can't believe we're already on to our third kind of artist in this series already. It's where's the time going? It's flying by, big style. So just for everybody that's watching, thank you very much for coming in and joining us. If you have any questions, please feel free just to type in the chat on Facebook, and we have a bit at the end where we can try and answer some questions that you might have. But also just be really aware, because this is always, this session in the evening is always about mental wellness or mental health, that there may be some things that are said by either myself or Francisco that are triggering. So just be really aware that we're having a quite an honest conversation about mental health and working as a creative and having you know, good or poor or mixed mental health or mental well-being. Probably I prefer the word mental well-being. So Francisco, it's really lovely to have you here. Welcome. Francisco,
Hi,
you're based, whereabouts are you based, Francisco?
I'm based in London, yes, in central London practically, yeah. And I have been in here for 16 years, yes, in London.
Very nice, very nice. And you work in, you're a painter, is that right?
Yes, yes, I am. Well, my formation is as an architect, but for a long time I have been really from I was teenager. I was painting until now, and yes, finally part of this recovery and healing is at my 50, almost 58. I decided that I dedicate my life to only for painting and retire from architectural work.
Very beautiful. So you're retired from architecture and you're now devoting your life to your painting, which is fantastic.
Yes.
And we're going to find out about your journey. So we're going to talk about your journey this evening, and then we'll find out about, you know, other stuff in terms of business next Tuesday when we meet. So let's get ourselves started and start with our first question. So I have already sent you the questions so that you can have a think about what you were going to respond. But I'll say them out loud. So again, it's just the same questions that we've had before, but it's just really interesting getting the different point of views from different people. So our question one was, our theme is mental well-being and being a creative. What is your specific journey in relation to your mental well-being?
Really, my journey in this, as mentioned before, is a kind of recovery and healing. It started about 9 years ago. For different reasons, and I start with I joined to a therapy group. Really, is a therapy group, part of the 12-step groups, and start to this recovering, understanding myself and diving inside myself, because I discovered that any problem I have are not external, are inside me. So I need to dive inside me and start to recognizing, accepting which problem I have and which were impediment to develop my creativity and to be myself. So I think the first and is very difficult step is it's to be humble and accepting that we have defects and problems, and the solution are inside me, but with the help of other people, groups, or anything, something like that. But my part is I must to work in the work from me. and is correcting and discovering a lot of grown patterns, grown behaviors in terms of business and grown ideas and beliefs. I have been for years and years uh, part of the growing up and society, culture and family, even some pattern inherited from families, you know. So in fact, I study, I told you, I mentioned that my formation is as an architect. I study architecture because it was for family members, and in those times I grew up in a country with a dictatorship. Was not very good to study art and to be a bit hippie, a bit, something, an artist. Artists were associated with communism and all these things. And so the best way to study something more creative was to be an architect. It was more established profession.
That was more accepted.
So
it was more
exactly more accepted. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Exactly.
Interesting in the kind of where you get brought up and how you get brought up and the countries. Where are you from originally, Francisco?
From Chile.
From Chile, right? Okay, yeah. So just coming
Yeah.
from different kind of cultural backgrounds and how you're brought up in these cultural backgrounds, and even like for myself, coming from I'm from Scotland. I'm from that far north of Scotland, almost at the end of the mainland of Scotland, and it was very much rooted further back in time than if I had been brought up in Edinburgh or in Glasgow or somewhere like that. And it's interesting how these affect just the way that you are and the person that you are and the beliefs that you have, and then you come away and you get into a different life in a different country or in a different city. I get to a city, my goodness, there wasn't a city that was any closer than 200 miles away from where I was brought up. So to get to the big bright lights of Aberdeen where I studied and then realized was just almost as backwards as where I actually came from was mad. But then you start to see life can be that little bit different and people are just that little bit different and maybe more forward thinking. So it's hard, but you've got a lot of ingrained kind of behaviors from other backgrounds.
Yeah, from different, exactly. So all this process and year of recovery and healing, I have been really a kind of decluttering myself, taking. I read in a book that our tendency as a human being is to put all our good things in the bottom of we are like a lake, and we put in the bottom all the good things and are floating, the bad things are floating on the surface. So it's common. And so I discovering a lot of things myself. Of course, all this is painful as well, but it's good to read off of all this as best as we can, because it's not easy. But one of these part is to learn to be vulnerable and to be humble, and yes, understanding that currently I think I am understanding that it's not a business there and I am here is like to understanding something spiritual. I am the business. I am one thing. I am the business, and I am a human being, a person. So
I always really struggled in previous work when I worked for an organization, and I had a head teacher who was very much about you park your emotions at the front door and do not bring them into school, and I don't want to see any of that stuff in school and any of that stuff in your work. And I always just really struggled with that, because my work, even as an artist and as a teacher and as a musician, in school I was still being the creative Carl, and to not be able to bring that into my work and be honest to myself in my work was meaning that I was kind of covering things up. And I think it's very destructive. I don't believe, well, I do believe that it does work, and I do believe that people do it, but they tend to be people that walk all over everybody else, and that relationships can be really, really broken and burst because people are are trying to be robots. I'm one thing here and I'm one thing here, and neither of the two shall meet. And actually, you know, these people I just distrust. I can't, I have no trust in people like that. I can't work with people like that. I won't work with people like that. And I'm happy to say that out loud. I will not, if you, that's how you go, walk on by.
Yeah.
I don't need it. This is not what I need in my life. So that's really interesting. I wonder if you can tell me, you know, that through your journey. So this three, because you said you were part of a 12-step program. Is that? Did you say that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and so am
Yeah.
I. So I'm part of a 12-step program. I'm part of Overeaters Anonymous. So I have an addiction. When I haven't actually discovered I have many addictions, but none of them are the ones that I would have termed before I realized what I was as like, ooh, he's an alcoholic or she's, you know, a drug addict or
Yeah.
this, you know. And I always just think, oh, do you know, I'm a good man, really. I don't have any of these things. And then suddenly realized, hang on a minute, my addiction is in various areas, and my biggest thing was self-harm and is self-harm with food. So it's interesting hearing about your kind of, you know, having that kind of 12-step program and being able to go deep inside and be able to be there to kind of the solution is within you, but it's within you and with other people around you. And I'm wondering how
Yeah.
that journey kind of has had an impact on you creatively, and how would you say it has impacted on you as a creative and as a business, both good and bad?
Well, I think the great and fantastic impact is I discovered why I'm here, what I need to do here. So that is beautiful. And also that I am doing something which is um, I am enjoying a lot. I'm happy doing this, and at the same time, uh, that people for whom I am showing my work or selling my work, they are happy with my work. So is a win-win situation. Which this is, I think, is very good for me. I really feeling this business now with me, and yes, because every time when I am showing, exhibiting, or selling a painting, is in this painting are my feelings, my emotion. I am I am sharing a glimpse of my emotion of a precise moment in my life. So I am. It's not only the painting for painting. So I think it is very good interrelation with, and I think with the world, with the universe, this holographic universe. We are all connected. So it's my part. Um, yes, and maybe I don't know what could be bad, but maybe sometimes for other people around me, family, friends, or could be also not very good because they know that I am an architect. So they say, why are you not working as an architect? It's a fantastic profession and something like that, you know. You are could be earning more money and all these things, but it's not an issue of money. It's an issue of to be in balance with myself, with my integrity, and feeling well, physically and emotionally, feeling well,
Hear you.
and recovering.
I hear you just
Yeah,
in terms of the what you should be doing. So, you know, my mother, and I've had this conversation with her, and you know, I'm happy to have this out loud. Whether she is, I'm not sure, but hey, this is my truth, and this is my kind of my story. But my mum really struggled with me leaving teaching. She really struggled with me leaving the job that was making me so suicidal and so ill, and she still was like, "You shouldn't leave it," and I was just like, well, I might leave it permanently if we're not careful, but I might also leave everything else permanently if we're not careful here. So I'm thinking maybe I should leave it. So I'm not going to listen to you on that one. I haven't listened to her an awful lot, to tell you the truth, in life. But anyway, kind of fought against her. And then the whole. But if you're not a teacher, if you're not in school, if you're not doing management, if you're not doing this sort of thing, then what kind of career do you have? What status do you have? You have no status. You have no status. You put all this
Yeah.
work into what you've done. You've spent all that money studying, and you've got rid of it. Your status is gone. And I'm just like, well, I don't think my status has gone in any shape or form. Not that I'm at all living on status. I don't care about status. I don't think anybody is better than anybody else, regardless of the qualifications they have. People are cleverer and brainier and smarter, but that doesn't make you automatically status-wise higher than me or anybody else. So that really used to get my goat massively. But actually, the reality for me is that I'm taken way more seriously now than I think I ever was when I worked in school, because I'm now getting to speak my truth and speak with the knowledge that I have for the work that I do, and the knowledge that I have in terms of my ability and what I can do. When I was in school, I would often be shot down and told, well, Carl, that's not how we do it, because we don't want to think outside the box. We want to, keep everything contained because we've always done it like this. And so, actually, my argument to my mother is, if you're talking status, I feel that my status is far higher now, if that's what we're talking, than it ever was in school. And I'm earning an awful lot less than I did when I was in school. But quite frankly, I can, none of that is important enough for me. But yeah, it's amazing how other people really struggle. And I think a lot of the time it's because they look at you and go, oh God, he's really brave and he's done what I want to do, and I hate what I'm doing, but I'm never going to be able to do this. I wouldn't be able to do what he's doing because he's lucky, he's talented, he's musical. I never worked at all. Clearly, didn't spend hours every day practicing or going to university to learn about it or anything like that at all. Oh, he's really creative. He's arty, but actually, people just don't realize that they've not tapped into what they might be able to do. So yeah, so I think that's really interesting in terms of the kind of bad stuff. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you the next question. What advice would you give to someone who is in the same position that you are in, but hasn't quite released themselves to allow their business to flourish and grow, no matter how small that growth may be?
Yes. Well, I think uh, to learn about a lot about ourselves and to be honest with ourselves is I think a little first step to start to researching which way to follow for recovering and to be in a better position. Um,
Do you
yeah,
think? Do you think part of it is about recovery as well? Doing this is about recovery, and whether recovery is from a 12-step program or recovery is from your own journey, or recovery is finding a happier space, even if you're a happy person. um
yeah,
yeah, so you think recovery is a really important word. It's interesting because I've probably never used that word, but actually now that I think about it, recovery is quite a powerful word to use
yes.
as a business person. I think it's a really powerful word to use. Sorry, I interrupted you. Anyway, yeah.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, yes, I think, yes, I have been learning this vocabulary because the truth is I was like a lot of men in the world, especially coming from Latin America, where the macho man is important, So, expressing vulnerability and feeling like pain and all these things. So I learned a new language, a new vocabulary, which can express. And I think yes, recovery is a good word, and it's have a lot of pattern of goodness in the world. So is yeah, and it's like yeah, like that because also all this process. For example, I did mention, but the last 5 years I have been in really in uh, recovering because I say 9 years before, and then an event came to my life, which was very hard, and it, I lost a daughter of 23-year-old 5 years ago. Um, my or only daughter with my wife, so it was very hard. But luckily, we have been before in the 12 steps, so we were a bit prepared for that, and we can after that using all more this recovery um, for yes healing ourselves and. Art was a very important, creativity was a very important part of this process. Um, yes, and well, I think continuing with the question, I think yes, is doing the hard work, diving inside ourselves for yes, and yeah, start to thinking. In a kind of no duality, no duality. As I told you, the business is there, or higher power or the God is there, and I'm here, and we are all in one thing, in one universe. So that is important to apply and um, start to checking or belief like competing or comparing with another people, with the other ones, she is best or he is best, he has more money, or all these things are rubbish. Don't help us to be ourselves. That is the main point.
Apparently it's what makes
Yes.
the world go round, that and that sort of thing really just it doesn't. Look what it's doing to the world. Look at where we are just now. We're in the middle of a global pandemic that has come,
Yeah.
I think, purely from greed. And I think we'd be foolish to think otherwise. And it's man's greed, and you know, we shouldn't get political. I know we shouldn't get political, but that is part of who I am as well. And I just look at how things have been dealt with, and the eye has been on the economy, not on people.
Yeah.
It's not been on people. There has not been enough care and love expressed towards the people on this earth and nature on this earth. And this pandemic is getting worse because we're going, but we've got to keep the economy growing. Well, do you know something? Without people, there's no economy. So,
Yeah.
and actually some of the
Yeah.
countries have proven themselves to have their economies are safe, but they also manage to
Yeah.
lock down and have, saved their people as well. Maybe some people just need to start learning that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we
Yes.
diversified there, but I find it really interesting about you're talking about people, about looking at people and the jealousy of people, or people being jealous of each other, and people going, he's better than me, or she's got more than I have and I want that as much as that. And I know that I suffered from that. I wanted to work in management in schools for such a long time, and I almost got a management job in my very early 20s when I moved to a school. I had gone to the school, I was only there 6 months, applied, was second in, actually was probably going to get the job, but somebody else had a bit more experience than me, and that's why they got the job. And then for that, I was like, I'm hungry for it, I'm hungry for it. And every time I interviewed, I made an utter mess of it, and was never ever kind of like given it. And I never listened to that, and it took about another 8-9 years before I was just like, and then I got one. And then the reality was, actually, this is horrific, and actually I should have listened to my soul back then, which was, this isn't for you, this isn't what you should be doing.
Yeah.
And it was all definitely born out of kind of all jealousy, I think, and the want to have more money, and the want to be up there, and the need to be, look at me, I'm a middle management in school at the age of 28, and actually, who cares? Now I'm very much
Yeah.
on I love the creative community. I love working in the creative community, and I don't go to markets, and I don't go to anything, and I don't think, oh, she's better than me, or she's done better than me, or she's done better than me. I don't care about that, but I want to have the conversations with people. But some people are very, even in the creative world, can be very kind of like, why is he talking to me? And she's like, "Because actually, genuinely, I'm just somebody who loves to chat, and I'm really friendly, and I think I'd like everybody to be friends in the world, really." So yeah, so it's interesting. I wonder
Yeah.
if we've had any questions at all, because I think what is the time? Oh, gosh, we are running away again.
You didn't see me flapping my arms there,
Oh, I'm
sorry.
sorry, I didn't.
That's all right. We haven't got any questions, just a couple of comments. But yeah, and we've got 3 minutes to go, or 4 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever, almost there. It was really good conversation. Really enjoyed it, Francisco. Thank you very much for sharing. And it's you've obviously, as a parent, I've said to you before, to have to go through that grief and to go through is has to be perhaps the hardest thing. And uh, art has obviously helped you in that. And it's just every time we have these conversations, Carl, it's just quite amazing. Different people we've met and different journeys we've heard of now,
And
and each.
difference, it's the different conversations. This has been such a different conversation. And the one thing that I'm massively taking away from this is the recovery thing. And I think that is a really interesting thought process. How does recovery come into business? Mm.
It is something to take away. Interestingly, my 14-year-old daughter, who's struggling with an eating disorder, said to me a week ago, and she said, "Mom, you run these mental health awareness sort of things." She said, "Oh, wouldn't that be great if you could get Artisanry to for the artists to work with students to teach some craft which might help them, because you keep saying that craft really helps with mental health, which is what she's struggling with dramatically at the moment." And I thought, how fantastic would it be to be able to bring the community together and be financially, as a company, to be in a position to fund something like that, where you could go and work with senior school students, where it's like it's absolutely mad out there. I don't know if it is worse in this day than it was in ours, but your heart goes out to them.
I don't know. I don't know if it was worse. I don't know if it is worse than it was in ours, other than it's much more. We can find out about it an awful lot easier and an awful lot faster than we did, back then. I think, and I think that that goes for every generation that's suffered.
I think there is a lot less shame. I mean, there is still this factor of shame, which is very,
Huge.
very difficult to deal with. And, Francisco, especially from your end, I would think, you come from a culture, as you said, the Latino male macho thing, to actually be able to expose your feelings and say, this is how you feel and this is what it's done. It must have been really challenging, because I see a 14-year-old child struggling with it and saying, "Oh, mom, don't say it to anybody." And maybe I shouldn't be talking on live, just because I don't want her to feel that I've sort of shared it with everybody. But there is this element of shame which I just don't get it. Why is there so much shame attached to it?
Mhm. Well, I think Carl mentioned the recovery issue. I think the recovery is a set with a lot of tools and creativity, as you are telling for your daughter doing something. Creativity is one of the tools. There are a lot of tools. It's a set of tools. I think, doing, uh, looking inside ourselves, and not only ourselves with ourselves, and also in with our family, where the problem was created and why. Sometimes family cross for a circumstance that trigger addiction and thing, and that is inherited for generation and generation, and someone need to cut the chain of this problem. Sometimes going to or practicing any kind of recovery with a lot of tools, and connection with the spirituality is another tool have been very good for me as well. So
I wonder if there's something
yes.
in the recovery process, being a 12-step program, I often when I'm in my 12-step program introduce myself and what my what I suffer from, and then also, but I'm also an overthinker, and I often wonder whether actually overthinking is the biggest problem as opposed to my problem being food or being alcohol, and whether actually it's all my thought processes that send me down this path of destruction when it comes to eating and self-harming with eating. And I wonder if we could approach life in a 12-step way that is it's the whole being, where people can think about their thought processes as a way of recovery, as opposed to just you only go to it because you have a problem with alcohol, or you only have a problem with food or drugs or whatever it is. Yeah, it's an
Do
interesting.
you know, it's an interesting one you say. I don't know what a 12-step program is. I'm going to look it up after this call. But
Well, Alcoholics Anonymous is a 12-step program.
right, okay.
Then it's labeled. There are various different places. There's Overeaters Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. There's gamblers.
Right.
There's all these different things. And I
I'm
sometimes
going to
So,
go on then, Francisco.
no, I have been in a group, the 12-step called Under Earners Anonymous.
say that again. Sorry.
Sorry, we'll miss that.
Under Earners Anonymous. I have been in a UA, Under Earners Anonymous.
Earners Anonymous. Oh.
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
I never heard
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Have been fantastic for me because I have been learning a lot of me, and the problem I have is it's not only for an issue of money. It's to evaluate yourself, your skills, your talent, because a lot of people have talent and they don't.
Ooh.
Oh no.
No. That was very, very interesting.
Yeah. Well, for example, I grew up. My dad was a fantastic man, very good man, very nice. He was a mechanic engineer repairing cars, and have a lot of friends. A lot of friends love him, but he was ashamed to charge for his work. So I grew up in a family with this father, and when I finished my career, I was an architect, but I was the same, chain for charging for my work. When I arrived to London, I used to charge £50 for projects.
Oh my God! Come to Edinburgh, do it for me. Wow.
Yeah.
Do you know,
Yeah. So
I find it fascinating because I think, Carl, I've said to you, I'm a Buddhist, and as a Buddhist, this is what we sort of, Buddhism believes in, Nichiren's Buddhism, what I do. We're grossly over time, but this is very interesting, so we'll go on for a little bit. I have another few minutes. So as a Buddhist, we think about, taking responsibility, and everything starts with us. Nothing is external, you can change it from inside you.
yeah.
But the other thing that just sort of struck me when you talked about, Carl, about thought, and how it is the thought, I've been training as a coach, and I've been doing coaching and a part of my Buddhist practice as well, and I've been training as a coach in any case. Wanted to sort of do that for Artisanry, which I do now with a lot of people. One of the things that strikes me is that it's always our thought is not reality, but we think that our thoughts are reality, and that is the basis of the problem.
So when I gave up control, so and that the thought process is about control. How do I control what's happening to me and what's around me, and what I think? If I think this, then I have a bit more control over it. And if that's and so a lot of things that I used to do were about trying to do self-fulfilling prophecies. I think this, therefore I'm going to have an action that will allow this to happen, so I can go, well, I told you so, Carl, you don't deserve it. And when I went into my 12-step program and realized I just had to relinquish control over these thought processes and over the compulsions, that's when my business exploded. That's when all of a sudden I trusted in the process that I would be provided financially with enough. And I don't have financial goals in terms of earnings anymore, other than I now know that what I bring in and what comes to me is enough to be able to nourish me both in my home and in my personal life and all of these things. And then I started putting that into everything else. So, even how I taught. So when I was doing my music teaching, I'd get myself really upset about it because I didn't think I was doing it enough, or I wasn't busy enough, or I wasn't giving the kids enough to do. And then I was just like, whoa, if I just let go of that feeling and go into the space with the children and work with them where they are at, then that is going to be enough. And then the movement forward is significant and
Mm.
much more measurable than the movement forward when I was trying to force things. So yeah.
I mean, it's amazing, isn't it, how this control, the moment we leave it, we're able to just expand our life. And Francisco, another thing you said about your father and how that, in Buddhist terms, for us, it is the karma, which, it's your family karma, where your father was ashamed to ask for his money and you were ashamed to ask. And you're right, as a Buddhist, we have to break. I mean, I believe that you have to break that karma, you have to transform that karma and create value out of it. And that's why I think in my vocabulary, value is perhaps the most used and the most meaningful word, because it doesn't matter whatever challenge you have, if you can turn it around and create value out of it, then that challenge is an opportunity. And it's in our thought, is that a challenge or is that a problem? And it's turning that, how do you turn that control of everything that is a problem into an opportunity and expand your life and let all of that soak in. So amazing. Yeah, I know this has been very, very interesting conversation. I think we need to start wrapping up. Let me just check if there are any questions while you chat.
Yeah, Francisco, thank you very much. It's been really
You're welcome. I enjoyed that.
You've left me with a lot of things like thought of it like that, and that's actually, and it's a really nice feeling that this is recovery, whatever that recovery is. This is recovery, and that's such a beautiful thing, and that brings me a whole new layer in my business that makes me go, oh, this is even more worthwhile. What I'm doing is more worthwhile than I thought it was, because actually you brought something else into me there. So thank you.
You're welcome.
No more
I
questions.
enjoyed that. Thank you.
Sorry, I interrupted. I was just saying there are no more questions. Francisco, please go on.
No, that's fine. I enjoyed the talk.
It was really, really interesting conversation, and thank you very much for sharing again. And it takes a lot of courage, I think, to come on live and say all of these things. So really, really appreciative of that.
Beautiful. Thank you very much,
Carl. Thank you very much for hosting once again.
No problem at all.
And we will see you next week then.
Next Tuesday, 12 o'clock.
Okay, that's fine. Great.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good night. Have a good night. Bye-bye.